Hey, what's up, man? It's been a while. Uh, Wrestling season just ended the regular season, man. That thing. My son had his senior year, so I was just busy as all can be there. But I do definitely want to get back up and running to a bunch of these shows again, get some people out there. And today we're going to start with Mr. Drennen here. His son, they call him Bryson Drennen. He's BMONEYBEASTIN. He wrestles and plays football. And wrestling costs a lot of money to do. As far as buying the shoes, paying for club, doing different things. And he's definitely in a part of our country where it's difficult for people to buy expensive stuff. One of the things he thought about is creating a shoe that's more affordable. And he's got a clothing line out there that's very affordable, and it's targeting wrestlers, mostly wrestlers, and he's getting into some football too, as his son is a two-sport athlete. But we'll get into the shoes. I have a pair here that he sent me. I don't know, it's hard to see him with my window like that, but let me turn off my background here for a second, everybody, and I'll show you a pair of these. So he sent me a pair. This is version 1 of the BMONEYBEASTIN. Pretty neat. I mean, it's got some cushion here for your ankles. He does have a big logo there. Some people, I'm sure, will love it. Some people may not, but it's a cool little thing. There's gold and black. Now, this is the version 1. He's taken a lot of feedback on version 1, as do most companies when they put something out there. And he's got a version 2 coming out, which will be, I think, more geared towards solid colors. He's going to make some adjustments as far as feedback that he's received from the community so far. And I'm here with him today to talk a lot about it. But the one really cool thing about this whole project that he's doing is, for every 2 pairs that he sells, he's sending a pair to underprivileged children or less fortunate children, people that can't afford it, that just to try to get them into the clubs, get them into the community, and get them just putting the shoes on and trying it out. So without further ado, Mr. Drennen, man, what's happening? Welcome back. I know your kid's injured right now. I look forward to seeing him back on the mat. How's life up there in the dirty South?
Man, it's good, dude. Yeah, we had the unfortunate injury that kind of came out of nowhere. Hopefully, in my mind, he wrestled the season, got through state, wrestled state. So technically, he wrestled the season. He didn't get hurt till 2 days in the freestyle.
Oh,
but
man.
but yeah, he had surgery last Tuesday. Last Tuesday or Thursday. Man, my days run together. But he's looking good for maybe a May return. They had said something early on that a year, and he started crying. And they said 6 months, and they actually got in there, and it wasn't near as it was actually healed better than they thought. And they were supposed to put a screw in it, and it turned out they had to put up what they called an anchor, and they pulled his ligaments together, stuck it in. He'll be in there the rest of his life, but they said it could be about a 6 to 8 week recovery, which is, that's not a terrible time frame considered we started at a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What exactly happened? Was it an arm, a leg, a knee?
His right arm. I used to be crazy wrestling dad, right? But the last 3 years, I drop him off at practice. I go run errands and stuff. I come back and get him. Sean Russell calls me in the middle of practice time, and I'm like, you got to know there's no reason the coach should call you in the middle of practice unless something's wrong. So I'm like, dude, what? And I remember picking up the phone like, crap. I was like, is he in trouble? Is he hurt? Like, what happened? And he said, man, I think he broke his arm. Now, I didn't jump and panic, and I got back over there. But when I got there, it was really bad. He was laying on his back, and his arm was, when you're here, you're not supposed to go this way, but his was.
Oh, man.
And they couldn't even move him. Ambulance had to come to actually stabilize him, get him up. That night, they knocked him out and reset it because it was completely dislocated. They reset it. Actually, that was half the battle, but they had a fracture in there. but once they got in there, it wasn't as bad as they thought. So they got it fixed pretty quick. We
Awesome.
go to the doctor again Wednesday. Like I said, we're shooting for May. Like we had freestyle planned out, everything we were going to do. Of course, we're missing it all. Where maybe we might be able to get back to do Southeast Regional.
That's our what grade did he finish this year?
He's in 7th grade.
Wow, man, he was like, what was he like, fourth or fifth when we first started talking?
I think
back during COVID.
I think you third. He was in like 3rd or 4th grade the first time, and then when we went to Tulsa that year, and we
Yeah,
did
we
that
had him on
episode.
Tulsa.
Yeah, he I think he was in 5th grade that year. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, he's yeah, dude.
Listen, it's just 7th grade. Get it fixed. Keep going. I know the feeling when the coach calls. Daniel's had a heck of a senior year. A lot of trials and tribulations and things you go through in this sport, right? And unfortunately, he battled some injuries and some sicknesses. But I remember vividly getting the call at mid-afternoon, which from the wrestling coach, and I'm like, well, this can't be good, right? Because typically they're coaching, they're not calling you, right? So,
yeah, if you get a call, there's something up.
yeah, I
Unless
remember them calling me saying, "Man, it's not good. He's with the trainer. I think it's his knee," and he had been battling that knee for a while, but I guess it just finally had enough, right? You can only do so much, push it so far. So yeah, definitely know the feeling there when you get that call. The butterflies you get in your stomach, you're like, damn.
yeah, it
Man,
was
what a great idea you had um, with doing something for obviously folks that can't afford it. Look, there's wonderful, amazing shoes out there, with the Nikes and the Spartans and the Adidas and the Asics and his kid will tell you he's worn them and a lot of kids and please, if you can afford it, don't stop, man. Keep those companies going. We love them, but there's nothing out there that is in this $50 price range, $45 price range that you can get to get yourself started and get yourself out there and get yourself working. And I think Mr. Drennen would tell you the same thing.
this is my I'll go back and I want to tell you the whole story of kind of
Yeah,
how this became a thing,
please.
because to me it's sometimes I have to sit and think about it, like how did I get from here to here to here to here, like how did this happen? It goes back to Bryson, right? 2014, I think he was five, something like that, right? So Xbox, you had to have a gamer tag to play online, right? Which when he was little, he'd play like the shooter games and whatever, which, I'm not saying I'm the greatest parent here, but,
That's all right.
but yeah, he playing like Call of Duty, shooting zombies or whatever it was. And he came up with B Money Beastin', and it had the dollar sign in front of the B and the apostrophe behind at the end of the N. And I'm like, dude, that just sounds really cool. I don't know what it is. It just sounds cool. And I'm thinking a 5-year-old came up with this, right? Like, that's pretty cool. So I wrote it down and I sat on it for a long time. And for a long time in my head, I was like, he used to hashtag Facebook posts and stuff, B Money Beast, and everything was B Money Beast, right? And I thought about it for a long time. And the original idea for this was, and I'm always thinking about, like, to me, this isn't about making money, right? Like, at all. I mean, it's great if I do, because I'm going to turn around and give it to somebody else. But at the same time, this is more about a way to give back to people less fortunate than myself. I've been blessed in ways that I don't deserve, and I'm so thankful for it. With that being said, we live in a community, and there's a million of these communities, where this community I live in, the median income in this area is like $20,000 a year, right? There's no jobs here. There's like, if I didn't have a career outside of this town, I would have $20,000 a year. And whenever Bryson got to middle school, I seen how bad the situation was, and I'm like, man, I can't let this, like, football, like, of course, we're in the South, so everybody puts money into football programs, right? Like, we're in football haven here. So they'll put money into that. They'll buy new helmets. The county, they'll buy this and that, whatever. Nobody gave a damn about the wrestling program. And actually, until he got to middle school, they hadn't had a middle school champ in like 17 years or some crazy shit. I don't
Wow.
like a long time, maybe not that long, but years. And I was like, dude, there's athletes here. How do we make this better? So I went to the guy that they actually gave this guy that he was never a wrestler, but it's kind of like that in middle school, right? They'll find a guy that'll actually do the job. And he was smart enough to know, hey, I don't know how to coach this. So he worked it out where he could take them to the high school with the high school wrestlers, where they would basically train with the high school coaches, which is a great thing, right? And I was like, that's brilliant. Great. I'm glad that we have somebody here that's not so egotistical to think, well, I can do this better. He understood his limitations. He took them up here. Great idea. Well, I approached them all and I said, dude, we need a club here. And I went and I worked out a deal, and I'm gonna give him a shout out. Keith James up in, I think he's in Delaware or Rhode Island. He did me a deal that year. This is a couple years ago, and he sent me, I want to say 60 singlets, and I paid just like a bare minimum for them. And then I made a deal with Front Runner in Chattanooga, and I bought 50 headgear. The tornadoes, the I think Cliff King tornadoes, isn't that what it is? I bought 50 of those, and I donated all this to the high school to run a club out. And we got them in red and blue, where they could even do a freestyle program, which I think the first year they're going to do it's this year. It starts after spring break.
Nice.
And last year they had, after the middle school season, because here middle school starts like the first week in November and goes through Christmas, really short, like 6 weeks. So like after that, they had about 14, 15 kids that would come 3 or 4 days a week and practice. And then they went to, I don't know, 3 or 4 AAU tournaments. And then we had one kid from that club go to state last year in Georgia. And believe it or not, it was a little girl, Abby. And God bless her. She's a sweetheart. Tough kid, man. We actually have a new girl in there now who just happens to be Bryson's little girlfriend, which that's a whole nother story. But
awesome.
she's a tough one too, man. But that when I seen that, now this is where the shoe idea came from. When I built this up and we named it the RWC, and we were trying to make it cool and unique and get kids involved, there was like milk crates on the wall full of old wrestling shoes, right? And you go back to what I said about the 20,000 a year median income. It was like, okay, if I'm making $20,000 a year, there's no way possible I could spend $160 on Rudis shoes. I just can't, right? But they're neat,
or Nike or Asics or Spartan or Adidas,
or whatever it is.
And listen, we love all those shoes, but this isn't about that.
Absolutely, and we go to the Jeff Jordan camp every summer. I know he's part. I think he's a part owner of Rudis, or he's involved in it some kind of way. And they're a great family up there, and not trying to upset anybody here.
Yeah.
But I've got my own market over here, what I want to cater to. I'm not trying to get the kid that wrestles all year, right? I'm not trying to get the kid that's going overseas and wrestling freestyle. I'm trying to help the kids that just want to wrestle the season, or just want a chance to be able to try it, or the beginners. Like, really, I'm going after the beginner kids.
You're trying to get more kids involved
in the sport.
Because I think what you hear sometimes, and I know some article just came out that said the cost for kids to do each sport, and it had wrestling like at $480 a cost. And the wrestling community, if you saw this, went like crazy because, I mean, you got to pay for a club, you got to pay for the shoes, and then you got to buy the gear typically, and you got to do a lot of stuff, right? And the clubs obviously get involved and they help that out and do all that. But yeah, I mean, you hear, I've heard it, being with my platform, where new parents are like, man, I don't even know if my kid's going to like the sport yet or not. He's just starting out. I don't really want to spend $99, $100, $80,
Right.
50. I really just want him to try it. And yes, are there a lot of the upper clubs that do have those baskets of shoes that their kids donate when they get more shoes and stuff like that? They're out there, but not in the communities that Mr. Drennen and his little boy are targeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty close. And it's great if you have a pair that's, not worn or whatever you can pass along. But like, when I finally decided to pull the trigger on this, because B Money Beast in athletics, and I know you see the logo behind you, it says wrestling. We have another one that says athletics. Yeah, and MB there, I'll talk about him in a minute. But yeah, the idea was, okay, well, we got these unfortunate, I was one of those kids, right? Like, that's why I relate to this so much. I grew up and I remember, like, I was a football player. I was not the greatest wrestler in the world. I got my brains kicked in by a state champ as a freshman. Like, literally, dude, I would show up like at 3:15. I'm like, dude, I just wish it was 6 o'clock already because I know I'm about to get my ass kicked. I wasn't the greatest by any means. I've always been a fan of the sport. I was a pretty good football player. And when I was a kid, like, I was passionate about the sport of football. And my mother was a single mom. She raised me and on $325 a week, right? Which is not a lot of money. And we lived in a little bitty trailer. And I am one of those kids. That's who I am, right? And I remember, like, when I got my first my uncle Roger, who I love dearly, that's my mom's brother. He's 80 now. It scares me to death that one day he won't be here anymore. I meet him every week for breakfast. Like, I call it my weekly bitch fest, and forgive me for saying that. We'll sit and talk about football and politics and whatever. But he actually picked me up one time and he took and bought me. Do you remember Everlast, the brand Everlast?
Yes, absolutely. They used to be in the boxing community.
Yeah, boxing. Yeah. Everlast used to be sold really cheap at like Kmart stores back in the 90s. And that's kind of what my first idea was, that Me Money Beastin could be like the next Everlast. That's like, or an And One brand, right? That's like something like that, that's in that realm, that would be for kids that can't afford like a $45 Nike shirt, right? So I'm like, how can we fit this into this mold? Well, as time went on, I was like, okay, I don't like this. This might not work. What is the one thing that I can really give back? Well, Bryson's been wrestling his whole life. And the one thing I thought about was, everybody's making singlets and everybody's selling headgears and fight shorts and all this stuff. Nobody has an affordable wrestling shoe. So when that light went off in my head, I started doing a lot of research, and I did research for months. And I'm like, I got to find a vendor where I can get it under this price point, where I can sell them at this price point and even give a discount if needed. And I had to do a lot of math, and I figured it out that if every 2 pairs, I'll donate a pair, and I'll make this much that I can put back into the next round for kids. And like, here's my thought process. Eventually, like with my partner, you were asking about the logo, and I'll get to him in a minute, but he actually does really good quality singlets, Langford design. Eventually, I'd like to maybe do like a beginner kit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I've been looking into headgear, how I could maybe do like headgears. And I even thought about how cool it'd be to put that character MB. I'll go ahead and talk about him real quick. MB, we call him MB for Matt Beast. We think it fits the whole realm.
There he is.
He's based off of 2 things. He's based off of Bryson, who came up with it, and he's based off of a character from Teen Titans Go. So we kind of like meshed it together and formed our own guy. And I even had ideas of maybe doing like a comic strip with him, to where it would teach kids the rules of folk style wrestling, and maybe even help kids that don't read well, help them learn to read. Like, there's a lot of avenues there. We actually talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, and if anybody out there has ever looked into the cost to get a mold for a shoe, and then the cost to build a shoe, and then the cost to create a shoe, if any of you out there have done that, you know that at $45 or $50, he's not making that much money. So it can't be It's definitely not about the profit. It's definitely about the kids. Because if, again, I have, and I know people who have, and if you have, you know that it's not that cheap to get a design, to approve a design, to pay somebody to make the design, then to have the mold set up, then to test the rubber, test the cloth. There's a lot that goes into this, everybody out there, if you don't know.
This has been. I told somebody one time. I said I survived 3 days, 3 years in a row. I remember running sprints as a going into my senior year on a track in 110-degree weather, and I would do that over and over. This has been the most trying thing I've ever attempted in my life. So you got to think a lot of 99% of the shoe market is actually produced in overseas, right? Like it's all produced overseas. And like the 1% in the United States, like if you buy, and I know this sounds horrible, I'm a very patriotic human being before I say this. The reason that in the United States, if you buy say you buy a pair of work boots that are made in the U.S. and they just keep pushing that made in the U.S. Okay, well you're going to spend probably 3 times as much for them because they're having to go and buy these parts, bring them to the United States, and then they're probably made in the United States, but everything they made them with is from China or Bangladesh or Egypt or wherever. So but you can actually look that up, the statistics. It's like 98.7% or something made overseas. Every pair of Nike shoes ever created made overseas somewhere. So like when I was looking into this, I knew that I had to get it at a certain price point, right, to make this make sense. And I finally found one vendor who actually did the version 1s that we talked about. And, there's a pair of them right there, the version 1s. And I like they are a single sole, but I mean, for the price point, you can't beat them like at all. You can't beat them. And they come shipped. And here was another idea. If you see, I'll back up the bag. You got one, right? I said,
Yes, sir. I got one.
Drawstring bag.
I don't know if you can see it, but it's here.
Yeah, it's just the simple drawstring bag with the logo on it. My idea behind that was if your kids are having trouble obtaining shoes, they more than likely don't have a backpack. So worst case scenario, they have something to keep their shoes in, maybe put like their headgear in or put, change of clothes in. It's a practical thing, right? What are you going to do with the shoebox? What do we all do? I throw them away unless you're a shoe collector, right? Like I don't need them, right? So like, all right, what am I going to do with the shoebox? That's not practical. How can I give back in another way? So I came up with the drawstring bag idea. And I was like, if nothing else, maybe they go on a camping trip and they throw something in there for it can be practically used, right?
Well, so it's almost like for the cost of the box versus the cost of the bag, you can spend the money on the bag and the kid is it's something that'll function.
Right. It's practical. Yeah, exactly. And that was like my thought process with the bag. And I've sent out emails to clubs all over the country. I haven't heard back from any, but I've been popping them out, and I always put in there a little line that says, "Who needs a shoebox?" Right? It's not practical, and But here's the overall goal that I have long term with this. Like when I finally figured that out, and I got the version 1s, and then I found a new vendor that's going to be a completely different shoe for version 2. And we're shortening the name. I told my partner I would throw that out there because I've been doing the BMONEYBEASTIN Athletics version 1s. That's a long name, right?
Yeah.
So the second version is going to be simply the Beastin version V2s. Like that's it. And I like the version. I don't know. It just kind of works.
Yeah.
And they're going to be jet black, different design, more neutral for where it fit like any school's colors or anything like that. I really think like I was looking up different states, different, areas and things. And honestly, like my goal for these is that eventually, I'm the go-to for small clubs or upcoming clubs, things that are trying to cut costs or kids that, just want to try the sport or beginners where, maybe a club reaches out and say, "Hey man, I got 50 beginners. What can you work out a deal?" And I would so do that. Right.
Yeah,
Like
I
if they
was
come up,
gonna say, definitely. Also, when I post a video is, and I was definitely gonna say that here, like if you're listening to this and you've gotten to this point in this show, and you have kids, you're in areas that have kids that don't have shoes, that need shoes, that can't afford shoes, please reach out to him. Hit him up, DM him, message him. I'll tag him when I post this, so you'll know how to get a hold of him, and let him know. And if you think about it, for every two pairs, he gives away one pair. So
yeah,
so you have a club that's got 15 kids, and you pay for 10. He's going to send 5 to those kids that can't afford it, right? So you
yeah.
essentially just bought yourself 15 pairs of shoes to start yourself a wrestling team, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
different things to look at. And yes, again, like he said, there is a price point, and when you go online to buy them. But if you have a club and you're just starting out and you're trying to get kids shoes, please reach out to them and get a hold of them and do that, because he's really serious about this push and this program and what he's trying to do for the youth, and also for wrestling. I mean, this is great for wrestling because there is um, so many kids out there that I think would love to do this,
Yeah.
or and they go in there and they're, I've talked to coaches where they have kids coming in and they're wrestling in their socks first just to kind of figure it out. I'm sure you've seen that. And then, the coach sees it and the coach will take off his own shoes and give it to the kid because that's just what coaches do, right?
Right.
Or,
Right.
or you'll see two kids sharing a pair. I've seen that before where maybe they're brothers, maybe they're cousins, maybe they're just friends, and one's on the mat, they come off, they give the pair to the other kid. I've seen it at tournaments. I've seen it at everywhere. I've seen them everywhere. And I don't know if it's their lucky shoe or if that's just what they've got, right?
I,
So yeah, I mean, this is great. And even, just to have a stock of these in every club in the country, just for kids that are coming in that need a pair would be super cool. But,
I,
everything out
I
there, the boys and girls clubs, the YMCA's, the youth clubs, just there's a lot out there for these kids, and it's awesome what you're doing, I think.
I think long term, again, I want to be I feel like in the market of wrestling shoes, like I did a lot of research, and you can get on, like I think the flat soled Adidas. I guess you've seen those with the strap. There's like one or two pair of Asics you can get for around 50, $60, but that's it. Like there's not a big market there for, and I'm flexible too. And I actually think the version 2s are going to be more affordable than the version 1s
Nice.
based on I'm debating that, which I have my partner in that, which I want to give him a shout out, Quantel Langford. He did all the design for B Money Beast and Athletics. He did the branding. He is the brainchild behind that, and I couldn't have been this far without him. Look him up, Langford Design. He's on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything.
Shout out to UTC, right?
Yeah, yeah. Give a shout out to UT Chattanooga. We train up there with the new club that they started, the Minion Training Center up there in Chattanooga with the Russells.
I tell you what, you are where you're located. I mean, if I put a pin where you are and I took like a protractor and kind of like made a circle around you, right? Um, the amount of high level clubs around you in Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, I know you trained with Boskin for a long time at Cleveland. You've got the Boom Ranch. Now you got the Russell over there at UTC. But
You got Matt Pitts that runs Grindhouse, who is pretty
Matt
much
is
90.
awesome guy, right?
Yeah, dude, I love him, man.
Got
He's 95% responsible for Bryson. Everything he's done, right?
like Mr. Georgia over there that has his great club and his clothing line, and he runs the 32. And I know he's trying to get his hands around that state tournament.
There's we're in a blessed spot. I feel like I will say this in terms of Georgia, like this was the first year, and I had to fight for it. They decided, Phil Arnold was the ran Team Georgia the last couple of years until this year. You know, he took Gabe out to Iowa, right? Like we're rooting for Gabe Arnold out of Iowa, and a new guy took over, and they decided they were going to bring qualifiers back for USA State, right? And that's great, right? Fine, whatever. But the problem is Team Georgia really doesn't like cater to the north side of the state at all, right? So like I reached out to our high school coach and I was like, dude, we need to host one of these. Like we really need to host one of these. And they put in the paperwork and we actually got it. We hosted one. So that was cool. With that being said, I think that in terms of Georgia wrestling, if you look right now, like I've seen a stat last night, there's 10 Pennsylvania kids in the quarters. There's 8 Georgia kids in the quarters at high school in NHSCA. Georgia's getting better as a state. And then, but if you look where we're at, though, and you're talking about Boston, like Cleveland just won their 6th straight state championship.
Yeah, Boston is, man. He's so busy that when I text him, it takes him 3 days to text me back.
Dude, he don't even text me back anymore. every now and then I get like a Facebook message or something, and it's like, man, that looks cool. And then you don't hear from him for 3 months. But I love you, Josh, if you hear this.
Yeah, I took my son up there last year to see him. We went and watched the scuffle, not this scuffle. I couldn't make this scuffle, but the scuffle 2 years ago. And I got to go up there and my son got to train with him a little bit. And man, you know, what he's doing up there and then the camps he's putting on and the things he's doing. And you know, the brothers, the family that's got UTC wrestling right now is, man, that program is in such a good place. And it seems like everybody around the state is getting involved with the Minions and Boskin and Boom House, Boom Ranch, and they're all involved with those guys. And they're making that college better. The college is making high schools better and elementary schools better. And you've got, you know, people coming into Tennessee, like I know Tyrant comes and puts on a great tournament out there in Tennessee, and you see
one in Chattanooga, yeah.
And man, just shout out to what your guy at UTC and what that family's doing, Boskin and the Boom Ranch and Russell's. I mean, just it's so good to see what they're doing there in that state.
Well, I'll say this too. I'm gonna give a shout out to the guy that doesn't really ever ask for any attention, but I'm gonna tell you what, there's Matt Pitts. I've already talked about. I love the guy. He's like I said,
Matt Pitts. There's another one.
He ran
The Grindhouse. He's unbelievable. I mean, that's 4.
But then with him, that's what I was getting at. With him is Steve Hamilton, who's now the Dalton coach, which is like 45 minutes from here. And Steve was a 4-time All-American at Iowa State. And his son actually just won his first U State championship this year. Billy, you know, we love that kid. And like nobody talks about it, but he's told me stories over the years where he went undefeated against Iowa wrestlers in college, and how Dan Gable had told him he wished he'd recruited him harder, right? So there's people here. Like I don't think the South really, like you always hear about PA and Iowa and whatever, but like there are a lot of high level coaches, and there's a lot of good kids here. I mean, Hudson Chittum's from Tennessee, right? Seamus Reagan's in Tennessee now. Like there's a lot.
Really great. Which is really great to see why it's really great that we have SE Wrestle and Jason Fulmore at SE Wrestle, because he showcases all you guys so awesome in the Southeast, right? I mean, I know my main focus is Florida. I do the rest of the country I dabble in as yourself, and I've met people from all over the globe, and I've done 600. I've been blessed to do 600 of these.
That's amazing.
But what Jason at SE Wrestle does for the Southeast is awesome. I'm sure you know Jason. I'm sure you've seen him at the stuff. But if you look up SE,
I've ran across him at some point.
Look up SE Wrestle. If you're out there and you're in the South and you don't know about him, or you're in the rest of the country, you don't know about SE Wrestle, look him up. Check out his page. He put a great post on today that spoke about how you want to see who's the best 120 in Georgia? Watch the quarterfinals today. We've got 2 of the top Georgia 120s at the NHSCA happening in the quarterfinals. You want to see who's the best we've got a Tennessee, we got an Alabama kid, and he starts to break down his South. And, he always gives love to some of the best outside of the South, but that's his main focus. And he does a good job. So I'm sure there's little neighborhoods like yourself that haven't found him yet. But if you got a hold of him and you invited him up there to showcase some of your stuff, I'm sure he'd come. He lives in Georgia now, I believe, Georgia or Tennessee. I think he's right there. So definitely,
I'll definitely reach out to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you his. You can DM him on there, but I can also put you on I can put you on a group text with him, and
Okay.
he does a show all the time, so it'd be great to get you on there, and then he can put you out with Southeast Wrestler. He could probably put these up on his site for you. I mean, he's the best. I love that guy.
I would love to meet him. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's great too, because like if I've seen over the years, like I've become more and more a fan of the sport of wrestling, watching and out of everybody I've met over the years, you have to, the most passionate guy that I feel like that, Josh Boskin has 4 kids, right? I don't know if you knew that, but he's got 4 kids, and you'll see him in there at practice. And I remember back in the day, we'd be up there and practicing, and his little twins, his little ones were running around, and Zane, his younger son, that kid never wanted to put clothes on him. He'd run around in his underwear, and he was so zoned in. And he just took over the girls program at Cleveland last year. They got 3rd in state, and then this year they won the state championship their 2nd year with the program. The guy's doing that. Yeah, so that's the most passion. But you see all these guys have passion for this thing. Even Quantel, my partner here, he still trains. He's going to wrestle at the U.S. Open, and he's actually going to wear a pair of these version 1s, which is awesome, at the U.S. Open.
Super cool.
So but he's I guess in his 40s, and he's still, like you say, he posts videos all the time. He trains at this compound Oceanside out in California, and it just seems like once you get into this, you live it. Like my son's hurt right now, and he's been watching. He's a big fan of Austin DeSanto.
Yeah.
And he likes that he's crazy, right? He's like, that dude's nuts, and I love him. And I'm like, yeah, man. Because you watch it, and when he wrestles, it looks like an MMA fight in a way. He's ready to go. And a funny story, the other day, he was at school, and he goes to lunch at 12:30. Well, 12:35, I get a text. His dad, we're moving to Iowa City. I said, what? And he says, hired Austin Santos as a coach at the Iowa City Wrestling Club.
At the RTC.
I'm like, dude, we're not moving to Iowa City. He's like, I just want to hang out with that guy. So even being injured, he's into it. He's watching these Austin Santos matches, right? So once you're in it, and you know what? It's hard, right? It's hard. Not just the grind of it, but mentally, this brings up the most, and this is another reason behind BMONEYBEASTIN. This sport literally develops high character, high quality human beings, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, you can't ever, in football, and I'm a big fan of football, right? But there's 11 people on each side of the ball in a football game, right? There's 11. Well, I've done it myself in high school games. I'm like, well, you missed the tackle or what, you can blame that. But in wrestling, you get held accountable, because if you lose, dude, it's you. That was you. You can't blame your coach. You can't blame nobody. It's you. Nobody sent you a play. Nothing. It's you. So it holds you to accountability at a higher standard. And the people that can, with the kids and adults that withstand that, you see them as adults, and they're just high character, high quality people.
Yeah, you definitely have to hold yourself accountable to put in the off-season work, to put in the other stuff, because the coach is there for you. You got to show up and take the knowledge, right? The clubs are there for you. You got to show up and take the knowledge. The weight room is there for you. You got to show up and lift the weights, right? The pull-up bar is there. You got to show up and pull up the bar, so that when you get on the mat, at least you're given 100% win or lose, right?
You did everything you could do, right? And everybody loses, right? That's the thing. It's one of those things where I seen a clip one time, and I think it's a big meme now, where the Georgia Tech coach, strength coach, is yelling, winning takes everything from you and promises you nothing. And he's like going on this tangent. It was like a little clip on YouTube or something. And dude, that's true, man. And as a fan, and as you think about these kids like that do work all the time and just don't get the results, right? Like it happens a lot, and it's heartbreaking, right? Like it happens, right? It's happened to my son, like it happens to everybody, And but whenever they show back up after that, that's where you're actually winning, right? You get knocked down, you come back. And I think in life as an adult, you've been through it. I've been through it. Everybody who's going to see this has been through ups and downs in their life, right? But we're still standing here. We're still swinging. And I think that's what this teaches. And I think that's why I feel like this brand, and I don't know what it's going to become, but this brand can introduce kids to something different that maybe changes their life. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, totally awesome. I texted Bosco. I'm like, yo, Drennen's talking very highly of you right now. I'm sure he's probably at the NHSCA. He's coaching his boys and girls, and he's probably out there doing that. And maybe I'll get a text in a couple weeks. But yeah, man, great guy, awesome guy, and everything around what you're doing, Matt. The Grindhouse, the Russells, the UTCs, the Chitums, and even man, I can't believe I'm having this terrible brain fart. I covered the Super 32 qualifier in Georgia this year, and he invited me up, and he's got that great brand over there in Georgia.
Well, not compound.
Compound, yeah. You got the compound right there. He's amazing, and
Arturo's in Atlanta. He's probably the best.
And what about the guy in Atlanta? My buddy, he's crazy. He's got like these big girls teams out there. Oh man,
Charlie
Morris, my man. He's awesome.
Dude, he actually called me the morning after. I want to give him a shout out too. I don't get to see Charlie a lot because he's a long way from me, right? Charlie Morris is an amazing human being.
Unbelievable human.
He called me.
By the way, he's got a great garden out back. So if you go by his place,
I've been seeing videos, right? And dude, he is a great guy. He actually called me the morning after Bryson broke his arm, like just, hey man, what's up? And dude, he is a great human being. And believe it or not, we relate on something. And he was a single parent at one time. I'm a single parent now, and we kind of meshed on that. And dude, I cannot speak highly enough of Charlie Morris as a human being. Charlie, if you see this, I love you, man. And I actually texted him the other day. I said, what makes my day is seeing what you do for the world. And that's true, because like he's got like older folks that come in and he trains them, and he's got kids that wrestle, and he's doing this garden. I guess he like donates that food or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty cool, man. I remember so I did something a couple of years ago where I put together a ward wrestling team. And I got them singlets. There's a young man that wrestled for Life U that does singlets out there, and he's a great guy, and he's coaching in Georgia. And Omi said, man, help my boy out, so he's a great guy, helped him out, and he set me up. And when I got up there, I took all these kids to an Atlanta Braves game, and I had my buddy Tony Cerullo, who helped me fund the whole thing. Shout out to Tony over at Tenorock. And we took these boys up there, and his assistant coach helped us and came with us, and Devon, and it was just a great time, right? Well, I see Charlie at Disney Duels, and I tell him, hey, Charlie, man, you know what I'm doing? I'm trying something new this year. I'm going to put a team together. Never done that before. I want to experience, but I want to also give the kids an experience, right? Not just go to a tournament, wrestle, come home, right? I want it to be a little summer experience, so I'm going to do this. He goes, man, bring them all to my club. So we drive up there, and we get to his club, and they do cut weight with them. He gives us the room. He trains with them. And he's just, man, everything. We get on a show. I do a podcast with him, and just his open arms. He didn't hesitate to invite us and welcome us in. And I know that he does that for anybody coming into Georgia. He's just so welcoming. But as soon as I get there, we're shooting the shit, whatever. And he goes, man, I got to show you something. I'm like, what are you showing me? He goes, come on. And we walk out back down the hill, and he's got this big guard, and he's like, man, check this thing out. And he's so passionate about it. It's so cool. And yeah, man, shout out to what he's doing over there. A great guy. But Georgia, and we talked about Tennessee and everything they're doing in Tennessee, and they're doing amazing. Georgia too, man. I mean, the wrestlers and to see the jump that Georgia's making, and especially that whole beltway in Atlanta, right? I mean, if you take a protractor and circle it around Atlanta, you have some serious firepower right there too. And shout out to the Dirty South, man. All those states, us down here in Florida, we're growing, and it's just cool when you get to see, and then you start to see our state kids on those national platforms, and you see them at Fargo and NHSCA and USA, and even the little ones at Tulsa, right? Super cool. And then at the NCAA level, I know this year we had a bunch of Florida kids at NCAA D1s, NCAA D2s, NCAA D3s. We saw a lot of D2, and we saw D2 and D3 All-Americans from the South. We did see, NCAA D1s from the South. And, I know Florida this year didn't have any All-Americans, unfortunately, but last year we had a few that All-American, but even the ones that didn't this year, they're doing so well. They're at Ivy League schools, Division I schools, Division II schools, Division III schools, and all through this sport that put them with the opportunity to be there, and just what the South is doing for these kids is unbelievable. And I think what you're doing now, giving kids that, a lot of kids are not athletic enough to play football, or they're not athletic enough to play baseball. And typically sport and education is the way out of a neighborhood that is not as well off as neighborhoods that kids get their ways paid for them, or they get listen, in wealthy neighborhoods and well-off neighborhoods and mid-row neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, everybody's still got to work their ass off to get a scholarship. Everybody's got to work their ass off to get to college. Because even if something can pay, you still got to do the work, right? But the thing here, in these neighborhoods, there's not the same opportunities for these kids. And to say, hey, I know you're not good at baseball, so that's not your way out. I know you're not good at football, so that's not your way out. Or basketball, that's not your way out. Have you ever tried this sport? Here's a pair of shoes. Just go spend a week there and see if you like it. And next thing you know, that kid was able to go to an NAIA school. NAIA, I didn't even mention them. NAIA, look what they're doing. The kids from the Southeast. Look at Omi over there. Look at
Bedard. Look at Bedard at Reinhardt.
Down here at Southeastern, Kaiser, St. Thomas. Look at everywhere around the country. I don't know. People are going to be pissed because I didn't mention you. Look, I'll just say the whole NAIA is doing huge things. And man, I just can't say enough. And now these kids, there's going to be kids that you say, hey, here's a free pair of shoes. And 4 years from now, that kid's going to come back and say, man, I was able to go to college because you gave me a pair of shoes to try a sport that I would have never been able to try otherwise. And that's what I'm trying to do, man.
And here's the thing too. They say that idle hands are a bad thing, right? And here's the truth. Like if you get a kid and their limitations is I can't afford shoes or an AAU card or whatever it is, but you can provide that. And now they got something to occupy their time. They're getting exercise, which is a big thing in America, right? You see the NFL commercials all the time, the Play 60 and all that. They're not trying to do drugs. They're not getting in trouble. They're going to be held to a standard of academics so they can wrestle, right? It's just an overall, I'm trying to be at the bottom to push kids up. And if I can do that I think I can make a difference. And not me, I said I think we can all make a difference in this with a lot of people. And dude, and the story, my son got into wrestling because he had to pee, right? That's true. I wrestled in middle school and then a year in high school or whatever. but I didn't know nothing about the youth circuit at all. And he was 6 years old and he had to pee. And we went to a rec center to pee, and there was a sign on the wall. Like, that was just random, right? But there's kids that, everywhere that I see it. Like, even in my neighborhood, and I've tried to get several of them to wrestle. And they're like, well, I like basketball. I mean, that's cool, right? Like, whatever you're into. But you see kids all the time, like even in my neighborhood, other neighborhoods that just kind of like walk the streets, go house to house, hang out, do whatever. They really don't have a direction. And I think like making things to where it's an affordable asset to be able to try something, I think it could give kids direction. And I want to make it cool and unique and different. And the idea, like my slogan for my company, show up, show out. That doesn't mean that you always have to win. Doesn't mean that you're always the best. It means get there and do everything you can, right? Whatever it is you're doing, right? It doesn't mean you're the number one kid in the country. It doesn't mean you're the best quarterback in the country. It means show up and give it hell. Do everything you can do. And that's whether you're building a house or flipping a hamburger or whatever you're doing, right? So that's what I feel in my soul, like on a daily basis with my job. I'm always there. I do the best I can. With this, I'm on it 24 hours a day. It feels like sometimes, and I give it hell. And actually, as soon as we're done here, I got a pair of shoes that I got to go. I'm going to meet a lady close to her. She just adopted her nephew, and I'm going to give him a pair of wrestling shoes. And I'm trying to give back. The thing is, for like I said, every 2 pairs, I'll donate a pair. If a club wanted to, hey, I got 30 guys, I'd give them a great deal, just spread it across where they could just buy them in bulk, whatever they needed. The version 2 will be available. I'm shooting for May, I think May. I'm trying to get ahead of the preseason stuff in the summer. But yeah, like anybody that sees this, you want to try, you have a kid, who wants to try wrestling, like you can't go to Walmart and buy wrestling shoes, like unfortunately. But there's like if you go to Walmart, you can buy cleats that are cheap cleats, like when I say cheap, those are really cheap that they put in Walmart stores. But then you have Shaq shoes for basketball, and I'm a big fan of Shaquille O'Neal, right? He turned down a Reebok deal to sell through Walmart, and actually he's made like a fortune doing it. But it was the idea that this costs too much, right? So you have the utmost respect for him. But there's nothing like that for wrestling. My long-term goal, I don't know how I'll get there. I'm pushing every day, but I would love to have a pair of these hanging in a bag on a shelf at Walmart. Like I put up a TikTok yesterday. It made me laugh, and it was from that movie on Netflix where Nicolas Cage kind of looks over at the guy, and the guy's laughing, and it says, "My kid, when my kid left his wrestling shoes at home," and then it said, "My kid," he's like giggling, And I'm like, I've seen a lot of scenarios like that over the years. But you can't just run to Walmart and buy a pair, and you're out of town or something, right? So that's something we're missing too, right? Like,
because listen, there's been times I'm out of town. I'm able to run there and get a pair of shoes. I'm able to run there and get a pair of flip-flops. I'm able to run there and get a pair of a lot of things. It would be cool. And I've been around a lot of roundtable discussion where people talk about, man, I wish there was a cheap wrestling shoe. And I know you got what are they, the Matt something?
What was it?
There's like the Matt Man or Matt something that you see a lot.
Yeah, we were talking about the character.
Yeah, they're starting to, you'll see little kids come into wrestling and they get these little Matt Man shoes or Matt Focus shoes. But they're little ones.
Oh, yeah.
But there's
little tiny,
yeah, nothing really out there like that. But man, this is awesome. This is cool. I don't know if that's something where you're going to do some smaller sizes for kids.
My smallest size I carry right now is a 1. So I mean that'll fit like typically first, second, third grade, first grade. Younger kids, little kids.
Nice.
They're actually I think 19 centimeters, if that's right, when you measure them. So they're really small.
This is cool. Well, listen, man, I'm happy you reached out to me, and I'm happy that I can be able to be a voice for you and what you're doing, and I think it's great because there are so many great shoes out there, and those shoes cost money, right? Like anything else we buy in life, and those are great shoes. but there isn't a good shoe in the price point that you're working at and giving people the opportunity. And to me, it doesn't sound like, by no means is this guy making a shoe to try to compete with those big boys. He's
Yeah.
trying to bring something to the community that he can sell one, give one away, sell two, give one away, sell two, give one away. And if you're out there, hit him up. And I'm definitely gonna put, we're gonna link him onto this when I post it. We're gonna link him onto everywhere. And if you've got kids out there that are in need, I mean, hit him up, he'll work something out with you. And let's get kids out there in the room that don't have it. Boys and girls clubs, YMCA's, youth programs, clubs starting out, elementary schools starting out little club programs, middle schools, high schools having a new program that are in areas that maybe they can't afford to go out and get some shoes to get on the mat. Let's get these into them and work on that, and that'll be awesome. But man, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Could I just say one last thing before we
Yeah,
get off here?
absolutely.
If you would, something that would help me, anybody that sees this, please follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram at BMONEYBEASTIN Athletics, on Twitter at BMONEYBEASTIN. I post constantly. I try to make the audience laugh. I come up with stupid stuff, but I'm always giving updates on what we're trying to do. And if you want to check out the store, BMONEYBEASTINathletics.com. Not only do we have wrestling shoes, we have football accessories, anti-fog visors, receiver gloves, mouthpieces, hoodies, you name it. I appreciate everybody who's seeing this that has supported me already. Actually, there's more pairs in Florida, by the way, Dan, than anywhere. So I appreciate everybody that supported me. And Mr. Ward, I always love catching up with you, man. And thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure.